Welcome to YG Roundtable, built by Max Weiss and sponsored by Health Payment Systems. I'm your host, Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode of YG TV, and be on the lookout for our new podcast of the show. YG Roundtable brings together leaders and subject matter experts from all disciplines to have important discussions for the business community. Today, we're talking about 2020, the year that wasn't. Let's meet the panel.
Hi, I'm Kathleen O'Leary, CEO of Wisconsin State Fair Park.
Hi, I'm Marty Brooks, President and CEO of the Wisconsin Center District.
At this time last year, we were fired up for a big year in Milwaukee. The Bucks were the best team in the NBA. They were raging towards the finals. The economy looked fantastic, and we were getting all spruced up for the DNC to come to town for our nationwide close-up. And then the virus hit. COVID-19 changed everything. And on today's show, we're going to talk to two organizations here in the Milwaukee area that were perhaps hit the hardest by the pandemic. The Wisconsin Center District, they were the hosts of the 2020 DNC convention, which was supposed to be a lot bigger than it was, and the Wisconsin State Fair. Speaking of big, the biggest event in the state that was sadly canceled because of the virus. So let's welcome onto the show today two great folks, Kathleen O'Leary from the Wisconsin State Fair and Marty Brooks. Kathleen and Marty, it's great to see you both, and it's kind of a bummer that we have to talk about 2020, but it's great to see you two today. I want to start with you, Marty. For scale, can you share with us just how big the DNC was going to be for the Wisconsin Center District?
Well, Pat, I'll answer that, but I'll take it a little bit broader. The city, the region of southern Wisconsin we were expecting about 50,000 visitors, delegates, production personnel, news personnel, and lobbyists and other organizations to really flock to Milwaukee for the DNC with an economic impact of over $200 million. That's what was expected. The main convention floor was to be housed in the Fiserv Forum, spectacular facility, a lot of activities planned throughout the downtown area, out into the region. 50,000 people obviously all can't stay downtown, so there was a huge overflow into the suburbs, the surrounding counties of Milwaukee City that were supposed to be here. And then when the convention went to almost completely virtual and then completely virtual, that 50,000 number really dwindled down to a couple of hundred, maybe 1,000 at most. And that would have been at the high point between the people that were in our building, in the different hotels. But it really became a far cry from what was anticipated it being for those 4 days itself. And then the week or two leading up and the week afterwards were nowhere near what anyone had anticipated.
And another thing for scope, how long had it been in the development and the planning process? This isn't a 2-week thing that had been going on for a long time, right?
We executed the agreement with the host committee, the district, in March of 2019. So we had begun courting the DNC in the fall of 18. So it was a 2-year plus process and planning as well.
Unfortunate, but we want to hear a little bit more behind the scenes, and we'll talk about that in a second. Kathleen, let's go to you. I'm not sure everyone understands just how big the Wisconsin State Fair is for the region and the state, and the number of people that are working on the State Fair. So can you share that with us?
I'd be happy to. Certainly the State Fair, as you said, is the largest event in the state of Wisconsin. the agricultural showcase in the state of Wisconsin as well. And certainly that is the cornerstone of the fair industry and the state fair. But it's so much more than that. I mean, it is the agricultural component. It's the entertainment component. The four pillars are ag, entertainment, our ride and games and amusements, and of course our food. So leading into 2020, we had 7 years consecutively of over 1 million visitors over the course of the 11 days. So a very large event from a visitor standpoint, but to put on the 11-day event is a major undertaking. It's a feat. I have a staff of 50 full-time, and then another 30 that stay with us from a year-round standpoint. But in order to put the fair on, it takes 1,800, upwards of 1,800 seasonal staff. From a facility standpoint, certainly safety being the first and foremost priority for us. We do have our own Wisconsin State Fair Park Police that I don't think the people know that. So they are with us year round. And we have not only our police department, but a mounted patrol and a bike and a detective unit. So a very large police force. So that is, that will give you a sense of where we are. We have 200 acres. We use every single inch of it for operating and programming the state fair. And, I hope that the, people that haven't been able to come, please, we're hoping that we'll see you again in 2021, but it really is an incredible experience for people of all ages and all backgrounds. There's something for everyone. It's incredibly individualistic. Some people come from the food, some people come for the entertainment, and it's really a great way for families to come together and really enjoy a day or multiple days together.
We're just getting started. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back for more with Marty and Kathleen. This episode of YG Roundtable, built by Max Weiss, is sponsored by Health Payment Systems.
Max Weiss is a company that does it right the first time. A company that sets the curve in excellence. Rolled, curved, formed, forged, fabricated. A company that delivers on time. A company that drives innovation forward. A company that has satisfied customers for over 75 years. Anything metal, Max Weiss Company. Call or visit us online to learn more about Max Weiss Company.
For more than 80% of families, today's medical billing practices are confusing. At HPS, our goal is to improve the healthcare experience for the patient by making medical bill payments less stressful. In Wisconsin, that's all made possible by our comprehensive independent healthcare provider network. We simplify billing and lower costs for everyone involved in healthcare and offer various ways for individuals to pay without breaking the bank.
If you would have told us in December of 2019 that the 2020 Wisconsin State Fair and the DNC was not going to happen in Milwaukee, we would wonder what the heck was going on. So let's go back to that time prior to anyone knowing that this was going to be as big of a deal as it was. I want to ask you both, and Kathleen, I'll start with you. Do you remember the first time you heard about the virus, and what did you hear the first time that you heard about it?
That was ravaging through Wuhan. And then just watching it rampage through France and then the UK, and knowing full well that the United States was not going to come out unscathed or not impacted. That was really when I first started to watch it closely.
Yeah. And Marty, how about you? Do you remember the first time someone told you about it?
I believe it was in December of 19. And it was a blurb on the news that in other parts of the world, this is going on, and didn't think much of it. But certainly as we turned the corner to 2020, and then the first diagnosed person in Seattle, that seemed to catch everyone's attention that, okay, whether it's 1 or 15, regardless of what is being reported, it's coming to our country, and we need to be focused on what this really means to us.
So you're aware of it, you had heard of it, but do you remember the first time someone came into your office and said, hey, Mr. Brooks, this DNC might be in jeopardy? Do you remember what that conversation was like?
Well, no one comes into my office and says, well, Mr. Brooks, that's the first thing. But so that hasn't happened yet. But as far as the first time, I don't recall with the DNC, because that was such a fluid, the 8 months from January until the actual convention occurred in August, because it was supposed to be in July and then got moved to August. That was fluid. Every day there were different possibilities. So I can't recall when the first time someone mentioned something about the DNC, but I do remember, and I know we'll get to this later, but the first part of last year, we were very focused, the district, were very focused on a project we've been working on for a long time, and that was to move forward the expansion of the convention center. And we were very focused on putting together a design team and a construction team, all working up to a board meeting that was set for March 6th, where we were going to present the renderings to the board, working then at that point over the next 30 days to develop an estimate for what that would be. So the plan was that present the renderings in March, in April, go to our board and seek approval for the project. I say that just to set, so we were focused in January and February for this major business presentation. And I remember in the middle of February, speaking with our VP of sales, telling me that she'd started to get a number of inquiries from people about events, looking to review what their cancellation policy was or what might be with force majeure. And even for leading up to the March 6th board meeting, we were getting inquiries, but I remember vividly being in front of the board giving the presentation about, I give a CEO report at the board meeting, talking about the impact to our business thus far from this coronavirus thing that we were learning about, that at this point in time, we had gotten some inquiries, but as of March 6th, nothing had been canceled, and it was going to be, we weren't coming off of our business projections for the full year. A week later is when the NBA announced that they were canceling their season, and that really, to me, was the benchmark of when our business took a real change for the balance of 20.
Yeah. How about you, Kathleen? The event, the State Fair, is at the later half of the summer in early August. Did you hear from other fairs that were maybe earlier in the summer that were starting to consider canceling? Or how did you hear about the first time that someone said, we might not be able to have the fair this year?
I remember vividly sitting here in the office. I mean, we obviously in March are at the height of our show season. So in addition to the 11-day annual state fair with over 1 million people, in those 7 years, we're active 48 weeks out of the year as an entertainment venue, hosting sporting events, regional consumer trade shows. We were in the midst of the sports show, and it was apparent that this was going to be drastic and change our lives as we knew it. We started our communications with our promoters as far as knowing that we were going to have to cancel the events. And the golf show was one of the shows, those very last shows that it was like, do we, don't we, should we, shouldn't we, how do we do this so that we do it right? And that was the very last show that we had. But from an industry standpoint, the San Antonio Livestock Show that is huge, it's 21 days, and it was shut down shut down on the 7th day. And people just didn't know why, but they were like, how can they be doing this? And it was before noon on a day of a pretty busy day there, and it was done. It was over, shut down. All ride operators, and we have a lot of the same ride operators. We have quite a few exhibitors that are exhibitors here at the Wisconsin State Fair. I mean, it was absolute devastation. I mean, certainly they have all of the inventory, all of the food products, they're prepared for, 14 more days, and it was shut down. The same thing happened in Miami-Dade shortly thereafter. Right before they were about to open, their health department came in and said, no, we cannot do this. We're in a pandemic. And that is how the story starts to go. And then it was one cancellation after another. At that point in time, like Marty said, we too, I mean, although the DNC was supposed to be in July and then it was in August, we were in August. And it was like, I think we can, but we just kept modifying and kept taking models and looking at them and until we couldn't.
There are people that lead organizations that have a job. And then there are people like you that live their organization. I can't think of anyone that loves their job and loves their thing more than Kathleen O'Leary loves the Wisconsin State Fair. What was it like when you had to cancel it?
Thank you, and I do. I'm honored to lead not only the institution, but it's just I have the greatest staff, and I have a very engaged board, and I believe in the fair industry. I will say it; it's the word that resonates with me every day. I mean, it was agonizing. It was agonizing to have to make the decision, even though it was the right decision. There is no question that it was the right decision, and there's no question that from did we do the right thing? We did the right thing, but until we got to that point, we exhausted every single model, every which way we could possibly think that we could do this and do it safely and still give the experience and still give the exhibitors the experience, the visitors the experience, keep our vendors safe, keep our staff safe. And it wasn't until, late May and we also knew that we had to be respectful and give the timeframes for our operators. I mean, they have to get insurances, all the different complexities that people would never understand. But when you're running an operation of 1 million people, it's a big deal. So we knew that by the end of May, we had to make our decision. And we looked at all the financial models as well. I mean, certainly that played into it. But on May 28th, we made that agonizing decision that we would be canceling the 2020 Wisconsin State Fair.
And it happened in the past, and I'm still sad about it. Just talking about it makes me sad because I know how much it means to you and the people that work there and everyone that comes. Marty, you had a different experience. I mean, not only did not everyone come and enjoy Milwaukee and see your beautiful venue, it still kind of happened on TV. What was that like for you and the team to see Biden go up there and have the DNC convention happen virtually? That had to have been an interesting experience.
Well, it was interesting. Well, I don't know that I would use interesting. It was certainly a learning period of time. As I've already stated, there was very fluid planning from mid-March until the convention actually moved out of the building. Up until a week or two before the convention was rescheduled to occur in August, the indication had been more than indication. It had been confirmed that both the nominee for president and vice president were both going to do their acceptance speeches in our facility. And with that, there was still a high degree of energy, the fact that they were going to be in the building and all the preparations and changes that we were going through in conjunction with the DNC and the host committee were still going to be showcased by their presence. A week, I think it was a week, maybe two at most, before the convention started, it was confirmed that they were not going to come to Milwaukee and give their acceptance speeches out of Wilmington, and that was took a little bit more. What was left of the wind in our sails took out, because that was a very exciting component for us to be working on. But there was a commitment that Milwaukee was still going to serve as one of the hubs or anchors for the virtual convention, and we had a job to do. And whether there are 25,000 people in our building or two, we have an obligation to make sure that we've executed the plan as given to us by the event team, which in this case was the DNC and the host committee. And it was a great experience in that even though it didn't get executed the way anyone had hoped it was going to, at least initially, I know that we executed flawlessly what we were asked to do. We pivoted, we changed without any hesitation, without any complaint. And there was a real collaboration between us, the local host committee, as well as the DNC, the Democratic National Party. And I'm so proud, and I share this with the staff throughout the prep time and then the actual time of the convention, how proud I was of the jobs that they did, because it would have been easy to go, oh, poor us, and gee, this isn't. Well, no, there's no place for that, because, as I said, we have to execute to the best possible way, no matter what the event is. And the fact that we were able to change and deliver an exceptional experience for those people that were here and those people that were able to watch some of it originating from Milwaukee, still a great experience. and one that, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, we've learned a lot about, and not just about doing events, but also about each other. And I think that was one of the most, when you look at where's the silver lining in this dark cloud, it's how people rose to the occasion, and how in a time of uncertainty and crisis, you really see what people are made of. And I could not have been, and I could not be more proud of the people that I work with, and have a greater respect for all the full and part-time staff that we employ.
And let's talk about that. Let's take the event and the past and now move it to the past. Okay, we're not going to talk about that now. Let's talk about how you led your team through it and what's coming up, because there are exciting things for both organizations now and in the future. So the event has been canceled. You need to pick your team up and you need to lead them moving forward. So how did you go about doing that, Marty?
Well, what we haven't talked about yet is, and I'm sure, I know Kathleen went through a lot of the same things. We shared a lot, and that is what the economic impact of these cancellations meant to our business. I had to make some, and not alone, I know so many people had to make very excruciating decisions about expenses, and a major component of our variable expenses is labor. I've spent 3 years, as you know, Pat, really working hard to develop, build, and change the culture of the district, and really happy with how things have progressed. And having built what I feel is a very strong and an organization that others would want to model theirs from, to have to tear that apart by eliminating a number of positions. We've eliminated 12 full-time positions. We've laid off over 30 people, furloughed another 35 people. To see that happen within an organization just really rips your heart and soul out. What was so important to me, and I worked with our marketing and communications person, Sarah Mayo, our VP of Human Resources, MJ Gilfillan, and her staff. It was just critically important that we communicate, and not just communicate to the people that were still on staff full-time or furloughed or part-time, but everyone. And we maintained, while we had to sever the people who were laid off and positions eliminated from our corporate organizational email account, we had their personal email accounts, and we would send them updates on information, as far as information we had on unemployment, about what we were doing at the convention center to work to bring them back, and also what we were doing within the convention center to prepare for the day when the administrative staff could come back to work, because in the middle of March, based upon Governor Evers' orders, we had everyone that could work remotely, working remotely. So we needed to prepare the building for the day where they were going to rejoin, expecting that people would be back prior to the DNC, and then also develop a plan for what we're going to do to ready the facilities for when they were open back for the public, and again, the DNC to occupy our space. So communication, and communication. That was critical, and also not hiding anything, being forthright, as truthful as we could be over what was going on, and what we knew about, and what we didn't know. And even today, there are just so many uncertainties about when business will resume. But we continue to communicate regularly to make sure that these people stay connected to our organizations, because we want them back.
Now, Kathleen, you can comment on the business impact if you would like, but what did you say to the team, and how did you get them focused on the future after the fair canceled?
You know, I'll certainly dovetail off of what Marty said. And, you know, this has been unthinkable times of canceling the fair and multiple events. I mean, certainly we have events, like I said, you know, on a regular basis, and we haven't had one since March for the most part. But it's the staffing, it's that difficult decisions, but they're fiscal decisions that had to be made. I mean, we certainly weren't having events and we didn't have a fair, so an operating budget doesn't look very good, right? So a very small staff. I mean, I said 50 full-time, but it's about 77 when you have the dual LTEs and those type of things in the state environment. And I had to cut 40% of them. I never in my wildest dreams, but we had to. I mean, we weren't doing the shows. We had a staff. We cut our expenses by upwards of 68%. Those are no easy tasks. So those were dark days. They continue to be hard days, but to Marty's point and to what I believe in, it's what I grew up in. It's where I cut my teeth. I mean, I am a communicator all day long. It's marketing and communications is where I started this journey. And you communicate. Communication makes you or breaks you when times are good. Communication makes you or breaks you when things are normal. So certainly when things are the furthest thing from normal, you have to communicate. And we communicated and we communicated and we communicated and we communicated internally. I mean, we spent more time on Zoom and we still do, because we had to see each other. We had to be there. We had to continue to stay engaged. And as leaders, certainly leaders in the CEO position and Marty in the CEO president position, that's hard, but you have management that also has to lead and has to lead teams. And it's honoring your vulnerability. I had to honor my vulnerability to say, it's not as though I could go, hey, Marty, can you help me? I like coming to you for advice on things. I like chatting with you and talking through things. Marty didn't know. I mean, there was no mentor out there that had experienced a pandemic. These were uncharted waters for all of us. So as leaders, we had to listen to the science, analyze the statistics and the data. And for me, I'll speak for myself, I had to trust my gut. I had to believe in myself. I had to believe I knew what was the best interest of the decisions that had to be made, but I had to trust my gut. And it led me to, having to make those hard decisions, but they were the right decisions. So that's the big part of how we got ourselves through it and how we continue to get through it. When I knew where we were going, and certainly the majority of the staff knew where we were going and where we were leaning, I brought them together and I said, this is going to be difficult, but what I need you to do right now, and from this point forward, I need you to shift your focus. And we need to think innovatively. We need to figure out how we can bring people joy of some sort. And I didn't have it figured out. That's why I have an incredible staff. I said, there's 3 things that we have to do. Whatever we do, it has to be monetized. It has to be to the level of excellence, that the standards that we will only, meet and exceed for anything that we do at Wisconsin State Fair Park. And it cannot lose money. And being monetized and losing money are 2 different things. So that is what I put forth to them. I created 2 co-chairs to say it's going to be an operations aspect and it's going to be a marketing aspect. So you guys have to work together, build your community committees, and bring forth ideas. And there are no silly ideas, stupid ideas. Just let's see where we go. And that is where the Fair Food Drive-Thru and 12 Components of Fair Necessities was born. And I couldn't be prouder of my staff for creating what is beyond anyone's wildest expectations of what I thought they were going to create.
Those programs were innovative, and trusting your gut to go entrepreneurial and challenge your staff. How did they respond when you came to them saying, all right, guys, esprit de corps, we're going to go be entrepreneurial. We're going to bring the joy to people. How did they react to that they had to create something out of thin air and bring the spirit of the fair to the community?
The tone starts at the top. I said, we're in this together. You guys can do this. I have all of the faith in the world. I can't wait. I cannot wait to see what you come up with. I can't. Just follow that criteria. We figured out our timelines. We started our, communication paths, and lo and behold, that's what happened for 16 days at the very end of July and through what ultimately would have been the 11 days of the Wisconsin State Fair.
It's great to hear you both talk about communication and leadership and trusting through your teams, even though the circumstances led you to make painful choices that no one wanted to make. It's instructive for folks that are watching, so thank you for sharing that information. And Kathleen, you took to the streets and brought the spirit of the fair to everyone. Marty, you mentioned earlier that you were planning on the expansion of the Wisconsin Center District amongst all of this wild card situation with the DNC. How did that galvanize the staff, and when did you get the approval, and what's going on with the expansion right now?
It was the expansion of the convention center has been something that the Wisconsin Center District staff and board have been working on since 1998. That's when the current facility opened. The north wall of our exhibition space, Hall D, was built in such a manner so that at the appropriate time, it could be taken down and an expansion added on to what now is the end of our building. I was brought in fact, this week is my 3-year anniversary as president and CEO of the Wisconsin Center District. So happy anniversary to me.
Yay.
Yay. But I was given 3 really paths to make sure that I covered as part of when I was brought to Milwaukee. One was to do what I could to get the expansion approved. The other was to improve the net income of the business. And the third was to connect more with the community. We're talking about the expansion. There had been a number of studies done prior to me joining that I got very immersed in, read about them as far as what we were lacking in comparison to our peer cities. It became evident to me that we needed to expand to be able to generate not only new business, but retain the business that we currently have, because organizations grow and expand, and if you can't accommodate them, they'll go elsewhere. I was able to get the board's support in the summer of 2019, after going around different city and state entities seeking to get funding for the expansion, because you need money to get something built. Unfortunately, couldn't find anybody, and you wouldn't return my phone calls to give me tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to do the expansion. So we were fortunate in going to the state legislators, were able to get them to commit to moral obligation, which is basically a backstop on a really sizable amount of money should there be any issues with us being able to repay it. And that helped us move forward. And in the latter part of 2019, the district gave me the authority to move forward and, okay, now let's take a look at what we need. Let's design something, then let's price it so that we really have a handle on what it would cost, how much we need to borrow to do this. All of that information came together very fast track pace from September of 19 till March of 20. As I referenced the March 6th date, that was a major date that we had set about 8 months prior, when we were going to seek to present to the board, these are the renderings, this is what the floor plans are going to look like. And now that we have this, we're going to get a price, and at the April 2nd board meeting, we'll have a price that we're looking to get authorization to move forward with. After the March 6th board meeting, it was a great presentation with the design teams of TVS and EUA. The March 6th meeting, we were still able to have with everyone at the table present physically, but the April 2nd board meeting was all virtual, and in a very trying time, it was tremendous to see that the Wisconsin Center District Board saw the value in approving a project that would really be and will serve to be an economic catalyst for the resurgence of Milwaukee. Certainly COVID has stopped a lot of projects cold. But in this environment, we're not building it for today. It's going to take us another 8 to 10 months to fine tune the design that we have in place, and then build it. So we're looking at a facility that we expect to open in early part of 24. And the fact that, again, I just applaud the support and the vision that our board had in seeing the value of being able to invest in the expansion that will bring more people, 100,000 additional visitors each year to downtown Milwaukee, cause compression in the hotel industry, which means more hotels further out from the city will get booked, restaurant and bar activity, and of the project budget, something that we're very proud of is that there's over $100 million in wages that are going to go to at least 40% local Milwaukee specific zip coded residents. So it's jobs. They're going to be 2,000 full-time equivalent construction people working on the building of the expansion, as well as in all of the support areas that are providing materials, goods, and services to the project over a 2-year period.
It's fantastic, and we're excited to see how that progress unfolds, and it's exciting for you, and we can't wait to see the finished results. Kathleen, I'm sure you're just dying to talk about the future and what's coming up. We are all excited to walk back through the Wisconsin State Fair in 2021. What can you tell us about what it's going to look like and what you're doing now to get ready?
Well, we're working tirelessly, and also being cautiously optimistic to open our gates in 195 days on August 5th and run for the greatest 11 days of summer through the 15th of August. But the reality that life is going to be normal in August is just, it's just not what it's going to be. So we can't act like we are going to be, having a 1,000,000-person fair. Certainly, we're hoping that we have hundreds of thousands, right? And we will modify. We're working on all different types of models. Again, back to that modification, because it's really the modification of how do we keep everyone safe. It's the most important thing. How do we keep people safe when they enter? How do we keep people safe when they leave? How do we keep people safe when they're buying tickets? How do we keep people safe when they're on rides? And when I say safe, it's always safety at the forefront. Pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, mid-pandemic, that's always it. But it's also safety from a sanitization standpoint. Our cleaning protocols are completely different. I mean, certainly we prided ourselves safe, clean, and fun. Those were the guidelines, right? And our cleaning standards were very high, but they needed to get higher. And I'm proud to say that I'm joining Marty and his team with the BioRisk. It's called GBAC, and it's really the gold standard of cleaning. And it's an accreditation that is no easy task. And Marty, I know you can, share that with me. I mean, there's 20 different points. There's 20 different elements of this cleaning protocols that you have to meet and or exceed in order to be accredited. So we were just recently accredited less than 2 weeks ago. So it's awesome. It's going to, we did it so that we could assure, from the state fair standpoint, as well as our show standpoint, to, again, the visitors, to the stakeholders, to the promoters, that we are taking this very serious. So
yeah,
that's where we're at. But we're hoping, holding out lots of hope, that we certainly can have the tradition that people have come to love for hundreds of years, to be able to come back to the Wisconsin State Fair August 5th through the 15th and enjoy what they all love.
I love that. Whenever you talk to Kathleen, she knows exactly how many days till the fair. It's instinctive. It's beautiful to see. And I know that you're working hard to make it great, and we can't wait to come back and see it. We're almost out of time, and I just want to ask a few leadership questions before we end the interview today. Marty, what did your organization learn going through this process that maybe you can use moving forward? Because not everything that happened was bad. Some things were instructive and make you a better organization. Can you think of anything?
Yes, I can. And I think what I learned, and I think so did most of my colleagues here, is the importance of asking questions and listening. We were going through something, and still are, that none of us had ever experienced. There was no playbook, as Kathleen has already indicated. There was no mentor to call and say, how do I do this? So we were learning from each other. We were reaching out to other facilities. We did a lot of outreach to other facilities within Milwaukee and also around the country, just to learn and listen. And a lot of the things that we've implemented as part of the GBAC certification and changing our protocols just came from very dedicated, smart people offering up, well, I've seen this, I've read that, what about this? And listening to people and having them, soliciting them to be part of the change in protocols gave people buy-in and ownership and a feeling of accountability that we were all concerned. And Kathleen has stated this a number of times, and I unfortunately just haven't had the opportunity to do so. But the most important thing to us throughout this entire period, aside from the safety of, you want to make sure no one comes in and has anything stolen from their on their person or their effects, but the health aspect of it for our guests and visitors and clients continues to be and will always be first and foremost. And if that means we shut down, we prevent events from happening, we will do that. We're working currently very closely with the health department for any event that we're looking at for the next 6 to 8 months. We are currently hosting a vaccination program that the Milwaukee City Health Department is overseeing. So health and safety concerns for staff and anyone coming into our building is just so critical, and just takes me back to listening to what is of concern to people and reacting to that.
That's great leadership advice, and that's great to hear you share that. You mentioned how large the organization is, and it's just going to get bigger. Any rock stars emerging from your staff, or anyone that you'd like to recognize for helping you get through this?
Well, I'm not going to name anyone by name because I will then I won't run the risk of missing someone. I will say that I have been overwhelmed at how people have stepped so above what I thought were their abilities to contribute, to offer ideas, to provide assistance to other departments when they might not otherwise have done that. And there were a number of people, again, not mentioning names, who I was concerned that they were just had become complacent. This really changed them and has made our organization much stronger because everyone is much closer. The areas that you would hope stepped up did step up, and then there were some surprises. But before you go to Kathleen with this, I do have to publicly state how much I admire her, how inspirational she is to me and my staff. She invited me over the summer to come out and witness what they were doing with the State Fair, with it being shut down in traditional sense. And it was great to be able to go out there and see how other teams are working in a very trying time, and the enthusiasm that I was able to see off of her staff, all performing in roles that were really outside of their box, helped inspired me. So those of you who don't know Kathleen, you're missing someone very special, and I hope you have the good fortune to get to know her a little bit, because she is a real, talk about rock stars, she is a dynamic woman, dynamic person, doesn't matter the gender. She's just someone I admire, and just she knows that because we talk often, but she knows what I think of her.
Well, that's great, Marty. Thank you for that. Kathleen?
To Marty, and thank you, Marty, so much. And again, I'll go right there with this, and then I'll talk about my staff. But this was the time that we leaned in, right? As community leaders, we needed to lean on each other. I mean, I reached out, and I reached out to Marty, and certainly I think what saw us through a lot of it too was there was 6 CEOs from 6 other state fairs that we had biweekly calls, and the ups and downs and ebbs and flows were pretty amazing from that first call to where we still talk, which is good because we're not out of this yet. This is, we're seeing some light, don't get us wrong. And, we need to hold out that hope and certainly that positivity, because we just need to have positive thinking and positive reinforcement. But being able to have people and nurture really good relationships, sound relationships. And that will lead me to this, and that is that in these unfortunate times, and any unfortunate time, true colors are seen. It brings out who you are. And I am happy to say that in my case and my staff, it really in the outcry of loyalty and support of me as a CEO, but of the fair and the people that loved it but understood it and were so disappointed, but they appreciated it and they understood it, and they were sad and they couldn't wait till the next one. Those are things that is the light, that is the upside to the awfulness of this. And the creativity, I mean, certainly through all of this, we are all going to be better people. We're going to be more creative. We're going to be more flexible. Our resilience has been built. Some of us already had a lot of resilience built, but we just got more resilience, which is okay. And from our staff and from my staff, I will speak to, we're certainly strong, or certainly closer knit and tighter, but we're much more tolerant of each other and tolerant of what life really looks like. And what do we have to do? I mean, have an aging in. I'm on the older end of my staff at 56 years old. So I have a very young staff that are teaching their kids at home while they're trying to manage multiple Zoom calls and be a full-time employee, right? That's not an easy task. And I think we all just believe in each other. We believe you get through dark days and dark times. It builds character, and it builds something that no one can really understand until you go through it. And that's the good part of it. And I'm happy to say that. So, and I have a ton of rock stars. Marty said it when he came out and saw this. To put on Fair Food Drive-Thru and to put on those 16 days, I couldn't outsource anyone. That was my entire staff standing on a track on the Milwaukee Mile for 12 hours, telling people, hi, go that way. Do you want a corn dog? Go to that lane. And they did it, and they smiled, and they were happy, and they got their shifts, and they just kept coming back and doing it for 16 days. And that I will be forever grateful for, because they are all rock stars.
If the pandemic led us to pumpkin spice cream puffs as one of the benefits, like if that's one of the bright sides that that's a good thing. That's one of the innovations that we have to keep around. The pumpkin spice cream puffs are something special. From the outside, we watched a major event that was supposed to come to Milwaukee not really happen, and the largest event in the state get canceled. And maybe folks that are watching this didn't get a chance to really know either of you before this interview. And I'm so excited to have you on the show so they could hear thoughtful, invested leaders and how they led through a horrible year, and they're leading their organizations moving forward. Kathleen O'Leary, Marty Brooks, thank you so much for coming on YG Roundtable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Marty and Kathleen for sitting down on YG Roundtable, built by Max Weiss and sponsored by Health Payment Systems. YG Roundtable, built by Max Weiss, is YG TV's place to explore issues facing the business community and learn from subject matter experts who stand out in their field. If you've got an idea for an episode, or you'd like to come on the show, visit our website, younggunsmovement.com, and tell us about it. And for more great content shaking up the business industry, subscribe to our YouTube channel and keep an ear out for our new podcast of YG TV. I'm your host, Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. A big thanks to Kathleen and Marty for coming on the show. See you next time.